Talk a little bit about one of the other individuals who you profile in the book, Hila Sadeghi, who's one of the protesters who does come to the streets and was hoping for some different outcome.
Yeah, Hila sort of represents this kind of young generation that was rising kind of in the 90s. And, of course, it was Karoubi and Khatami and the kind of leftist clerics who sort of made the reform movement from the top. But they were really pushed by this massive social movement from below, this baby boom of people like Hila and people a few years older than her who really, the revolution was a memory for them, if even that. Many of them, most of them had not actually lived through it. And so they wanted a different type of life. They were still, I think, operating within the framework of the Islamic Republic, but believed that they could reform it into eventually something where religion and kind of the theocratic elements were just not as important, and it would be kind of a more republic, Islamic Republic. She was too young to vote for Khatami. But she benefits very much from his win. She starts forming, and along with a lot of people in her generation, these civil society groups that sort of help teach her and others about democracy. And they form this really strong kind of like civil society network. And these organizers, they all know each other. We read one of their journals. They, were going to each other's houses. They knew their kids' names. Like they were meeting all the time. And so, from our perspective, maybe in the West, the Green Movement feels spontaneous, but it was the forces that made up Mousavi's campaign and that then came out onto the streets. Those were people who had gotten their training in civil society and in organizing back in the late 90s and early 2000s. And so they just had deep networks within society and could kind of mobilize people. She then, very bravely sort of delivers this very famous poem in the midst of the Green Movement. All her friends have been arrested. She's kind of like semi in hiding, but she delivers this poem and kind of referring to rapes that had occurred in prisons, people being killed, like really brave things to say, and kind of becomes the symbol of that movement, and eventually pays the price in terms of judicial cases being opened up against her and eventually having to leave the country.